Hey everyone, it's Stove here, and yeah, another great week. Very surprising games, upsets that were made, uh, overtime finishes that were unexpected, but hey, it is what it is. Going over what we were just we'll go over, we will go over the games that I thought um, should have went the other way, but at the same time, I got about 50% of them wrong just because you had the Bills, you had the Chiefs both lose. Um, Now, granted, Patriots did a phenomenal job on defense, and the Jaguars, with Trevor Lawrence, surprised the hell out of a lot of people. And I think even that turns into something that most of the fantasy watchers are more than likely going to want to see more of. So, anyway, especially going back to that real quick, especially since he had 2 rushing touchdowns. I think that might have been the only time in his career, maybe like the second time in his career in the NFL where he had 2 rushing touchdowns. So that's pretty good to see with the Jaguars being 4-1 now. Very good start to the Jaguars. I think they haven't really had a start like that since the whole Blake Bortles year. But anyway, going off the first game of last weekend, which was on Thursday, 49ers actually go 4-1 against their divisional rivals, the Rams, who are now 3-2. So, that it was pretty solid. Both teams were going 2-0. 49ers going 2-0 away, Rams going 2-0 at home. So someone's had to go in this situation, and even though Matthew Stafford played extremely well, I think he played slightly better than he did the previous weekend, which was also another 300 plus passing yards and 2 or 3 passing touchdowns. So Matthew Stafford is playing so well. There's no room of slowing down for Matthew Stafford, and I'm actually trying to pick him up in my fantasy right now over someone who has been slowing down in Justin Herbert. So, but anyway, yeah, 49ers win in overtime. 49ers defense really came out though, was able to contain the run like they needed to. Even though Williams got 65 rushing yards, they were able to stop whatever they needed to, and also Mac Jones played pretty damn well too. So obviously he's not going to be there that much longer if he continues to play, and since the 49ers are also saying how Brock Purdy is their guy, that's his starting position there, then I feel like Mac Jones will definitely be traded for some type of value, whether to the Panthers or to probably not Chicago. But I think if it's not this year, then it'll be during the off season after everything happens. And I think if Mac Jones really wants to leave, then he probably should, getting possibly even a bigger contract if he's allowed, but we'll see. Anyway, solid game there. I did have the Rams winning, but with it being such a close game, it really could have went any other way, and just the way it happened, I mean, it was a glorious ending for the 49ers to have. Now, we had the Lions versus the Bengals. Lions obviously won, something of what I was expecting to happen. Bengals, though, in the fourth quarter probably showed way more spunk, way more determination to get the ball into the end zone than I've ever seen in the last the first 3 quarters of this game and the last 2 games previously. So it definitely shows that there is the opportunity of being able to play as hard as they're able to play, but with the Lions already being up 28-3 by fourth quarter, well, by the beginning of the fourth quarter, it just seemed like, oh, the Lions also probably put in some of their second and third stringers, play around a little bit while the Bengals basically score on those guys. But yeah, exactly what I expected. There's nothing really I think the Bengals are going to be able to do besides wait for guys that are on the injury report to come back. But at the same time, the only thing I think you look at right now is what we do with the quarterback position. Where's Jake Browning? Are they going to side more with him than what the fans want? And right now, what the fans want is valuable wins. Now, obviously, I think even if you were like a super duper Bengals fan, you're still thinking, well, the Lions are definitely going to just have our number just because of the fact that we don't have Joe Burrow. And also, the Lions are going to be one of those top teams in the NFC going into the playoffs anyway. Probably. It's not even the middle of the season yet, but that's what my prediction is for the Lions. But it really just depends on like how you look at it and where it's kind of going to go for both of those teams, or really any of the teams. But still, the Bengals fought a lot harder in the fourth quarter, and I think whether it's Jake Browning, whether it's whoever that second string quarterback is, I really don't care. There has to be more of there just has to be more spunk trying to get into the end zone and be a lot closer, but also still allowing like 30 plus points is not exactly good whenever our defense is allowing this to happen. So anyway, not really much to talk about besides the stats, and I think you guys already know pretty much what happened there. Anyway, you got the London game. Vikings do win, is still undefeated in their London games. I think they're 5-0 now, making it with this win. Browns were very, very close of actually beating the Vikings. I don't know how many times. But at the same time, I do think the Browns and the Vikings, they could have been more, if it wasn't for random turnovers or random misplacement of the ball throwing, we would have probably seen a huger game. Now, Judkins had a fantastic game rushing the ball, 23 carries, 110 yards. I honestly thought he was going to get a touchdown, but again, like I said, the Browns want to be the Browns. I think even if they got a touchdown, even though they had the chance to give Judkins the ball and score the touchdown, I think they still ended up passing the ball anyway. And I think Dillon Gabriel still had a solid game. It's just like him, both Carson Wentz and Dillon Gabriel were like either misplacing the ball or they were just getting pressured way too much by the defensive line and the linebackers coming through and trying to basically take their heads off, which is exactly what you want. Now, granted, Carson Wentz also had a way better productive passing game than Dillon Gabriel. Carson Wentz only really missed 9 targets, but still, like, both of them were pretty darn pressured. I think both of them got sacked at least 3 times. So, you know, the Vikings and the Browns defensive lines were having fun with it. It's just you didn't necessarily see as much productivity on both sides of the offenses. So, but I think well deserved. The Vikings won. The Browns are still the Browns. Vikings, though, I mean, I wouldn't expect them to win the next game if they're playing like how they're playing right now. So, but I think by next week or the week after, they should have JJ McCarthy back in. So we'll see. Now, Raiders and Colts, this is not necessarily surprising to me. When the Raiders scored, the Colts didn't score. But when the Colts scored 20 points in both the second and third quarter, the Raiders did not score. They could have only scored field goals, and my goodness. To me, it doesn't necessarily make too much sense with how basically every Raider is leading the game in this stuff, so it doesn't necessarily make sense why it's 40 points, but at the same time, it's really just this. Geno Smith throwing 2 interceptions does not help their team at all. Even if he also missed 11 targets, the guy also still played a decent game for a quarterback, but is definitely not the quarterback that the Raiders need to succeed and win games. I do think what they can do is get Kenny Pickett in there and be able, which is the backup for the Las Vegas Raiders, and see what he's got. I think he looked pretty solid whenever he was able to play in preseason. I mean, that's why they were really thinking about possibly keeping him, but they also know that the last 2 years, Kenny Pickett has been more of just a trade value player to get picks. So, but realistically, you have Kenny Pickett there. You might as well play him since Geno Smith has literally thrown 2 interceptions or more in every single game. Or probably, I think it's more of just 1 interception or more every single game, because I think there was one time where he did only throw 1 interception, but the rest of the time it's been 2 interceptions. So it might as well be 2 interceptions every single game. And there's really no helping that offense right now unless Ashton Jeanty does what he does. But even we saw last week that Ashton Jeanty can do what he does, and the Raiders still freaking lose the game. So, and also the Colts defense, there's a lot of great defenses, real hardcore defenses that I've been seeing. And until these defenses actually face up with some great offenses to really show what they got, I think the Colts are going to be that AFC team that's going to be a surprise, just like how the Jags are doing exactly that. Even though I think they can do a lot better defensively, I do also think that the Colts have just absolutely dominated, and they should be 4-1. There's an argument where they should be 5-0, but the Rams obviously did what they needed to do. Now, this was a very much a huge surprise to me. The Saints played like the 2023 Saints, I believe. Or at least last year maybe, whenever they first started 3-0 with Derek Carr. Solid game by Shaheed. We haven't seen really anything from him in a long time, and it does kind of make it look like he's still in college, getting only 4 catches but having huge yards after the catch type gains, and it's exactly one of the big reasons why they won. But at the same time, the Giants also being the Giants, it's almost like Jackson Dart wanted to have a huge game, the first win, and then emulate his giant ancestor, which was Eli Manning. So, and also maybe I could have done it a little bit better with, thinking, well, the Giants could have a huge possibility of losing this game just because they were 3-2. I mean, sorry, they were 0-2 against any, going into anyone's home. So, but the Giants and the Saints pretty much on the same level. Rattler played decent, still missed 10 targets, but still had a decent game. Alvin Kamara, he wasn't necessarily the huge controller, but that's exactly what the Saints need if they're going to continue to win games like this. Have their defense play the way that their defense needs to be. Their defense needs to play the way it needs to be, like holding teams to 14 points a game could definitely make the Saints defense look a lot better, and also the way that they were able to get turnovers over the Giants, even though maybe one of the fumbles were more of a mistake than an actual defensive play. You still had turnovers. The Saints did capitalize on them. I think they scored on every turnover that they were able to get from the Giants offense. So, and also Cam Scatterboo also had a fumble as well. So it didn't exactly look very promising for the Giants, even with last weekend's win. You're not gonna, look at these Giants and be like, oh, it's the same old Giants. I still think that they have plenty of room to grow. Just like this Saints team, they have plenty of room to grow. And as long as both offenses for the Giants and the Saints play the way they need to, and not only be playing through one or two players, they need to get everybody into it, then they'll start winning games. And even their defense, both their defenses knew that. So it definitely looks promising for the Saints, but it also still looks bad that both of those two teams are 1-4 together. So anyway, you got the Cowboys who went against the Jets. Jets still defeated, not undefeated. They're 0-5, 0-3 at home. You would think that there shouldn't be any more Giants. There shouldn't be any more Jets fans going to these games. But whenever you have a playmaker like Justin Fields who can give you as many plays as possible, throwing 46 times is actually crazy for Justin Fields. That might be the first time he's thrown 40 or more times in a game, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he's done that a couple of times with the Bears, but you don't necessarily see that too much. Now granted, it does suck that Breece Hall is no longer going to be there because of his injury. I think he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, maybe a few weeks, maybe several weeks. So that run game, whoever's that backup running back and the running back after that, you definitely need to find some people that are going to be able to step up for you and for the team. And with Justin Fields also being a mobile quarterback in himself, you could also look at trying to throw the ball more, but also giving him the opportunity to maybe offensive line open a gap if you can, and I can just shoot down the pocket and try to get us 6 to 10 yards every play. But Javonte Williams playing absolutely crazy. The Dallas offense playing absolutely crazy. The Jets still being able to score as much as they did. Now granted, the Cowboys defense holding the Jets to 6 points until the fourth quarter, pretty impressive. I still think it's pretty impressive because these are all pro teams for a reason. And even with the Cowboys doing what they did, shouldn't be any surprise because of how well the Cowboys offense has been. But the Cowboys defense is almost just as talented, even without Micah Parsons, just a tad bit. And my argument being that they can produce drives where they put teams in tough situations. Now, granted, Justin Fields never got intercepted, but he did get pressured a lot, missing 14 targets, but also getting sacked quite a bit too. So the Cowboys were able to build their confidence, hopefully on defense, to be able to go into next week, well, this coming weekend, to do what they needed to do. Now, speaking of teams that needed to do what they needed to do, I generally thought the Eagles were going to win this, and they should have. It was 17. They did not score a single point in the fourth quarter. Now, granted, Broncos defense is solid, so holding the Eagles to 17 points and possibly even losing by 14-7 is still impressive for the Broncos. You know, everyone's going to be like, wow, we got to watch out for those Broncos. Now, granted, regular football fans will probably be like, Broncos still lost, whatever, they're still trash. No, they just gave the Eagles their first loss in, what was it, like 280 something days, I think. So Jalen Hurts played a pretty darn good game, missed 15 targets, but hey, what can you do? He was able to also give Devontae Smith some yards, with also giving AJ Brown a touchdown, I believe. I think, no, probably not. I think it was just I think Goddard. I was more watching NFL Red Zone, but at the same time, Jalen Hurts, it shows that he had 2 touchdowns. I just can't remember the exact people that he gave them to. I'm pretty sure it might have been one of them was A.J. Brown. But Broncos were able to come back, even if a lot of people are thinking, well, it was definitely scripted, it's definitely fake, they definitely let that happen. Especially, like, you think, like, no offense, but do you actually think that that the Philadelphia Eagles would let this happen at home as well, in front of a almost full Philly crowd? The Giants, they were just going to let the Giants poster up 18 points in the fourth quarter, singularly the most points that the Broncos have had in one quarter in the entire season, and just, you know, win by a very close margin. Seriously? I mean, maybe there's always a chance, but I really don't think so. I think the Eagles definitely fell flat on their face somewhere down the line by the beginning of the fourth quarter, and the Broncos played lights out defense and lights out offense, and Sean Payton was able to be very proud of that team that was able to come back from severe adversity, being, well, trailing by 14 points in the beginning of the fourth quarter, and being able to score 18 points to be able to gain that win. And also, the Eagles were the ones with the ball last. Well, technically it was the Broncos, because they had like a few minutes to just knee the ball down. But the Eagles technically had a chance to also get into winning position to just, you know, try to get a touchdown. But the Broncos never let them. They never let up in that fourth quarter, and that's exactly what teams should do against the Eagles, is to never let up. And once they find the Eagles' mistakes, they need to attack them right then and there. They can't just wait a drive or two later, try to do it, and then all suddenly now Saquon Barkley, they think it's a pass. Saquon Barkley is just flipping right onto the outside and scoring touchdowns. So, or vice versa with, you know, them thinking Saquon Barkley's going to do it, and then Jalen Hurts just tosses up for a passing touchdown. But also, speaking of Saquon Barkley, I don't necessarily really think Saquon Barkley was even a part of it too much. I think Saquon Barkley was the one of the guys to have a receiving touchdown, but the rushing game they were able to close down pretty well. So only making the Eagles a passing team definitely helped the Broncos in their favor, being able to close the rest of the stuff off. Because I'm pretty sure a lot of the incompletions came from that fourth quarter. So I think Jalen Hurts was doing pretty damn good throughout the rest of that game. But anyway, very surprising upset there. Panthers ended up winning against the Dolphins, and I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, it kind of also had the same similarity thing where you had Dolphins obviously leading 17-10 at half, and then it was 17-13, and then Dolphins scored 24-17, and then 14 unanswered points came from the Panthers. Even though Tua Tagovailoa played well, only missing 9 targets, that running game absolutely destroyed the Dolphins' defense. I mean, you could have not have asked for a better run game and better run blockers for the Panthers. It truly looked like the Panthers of old when they couldn't pass it. They just run it down your throats with Jonathan Stewart, or they would just, make not like necessarily a speed option, but just like run the ball a ridiculous amount if they couldn't get really any passing game going. Which 206 yards and a rushing touchdown is exactly what they needed to win that game. So props to the Panthers, but obviously a lot of people are going to be like, well, Mike McDaniel's job is going to be in question. Why is it always got to be the head coach? You look at that defense, and that defense got broken down by a rushing game. Do you know who is in charge? Now, granted, head coach has a good percentage of dealing with losses and wins, but I feel like, I feel like you also have to look at the defensive coordinator. You have to look at these players in general that let up missed tackles that could have made a play but didn't. So it can't just be the head coach. Not trying to necessarily side too much with Mike McDaniel, because I think there was also a couple of other games that the Dolphins should have won. But it really has just been the Dolphins defense that is more in question than the Dolphins team or the head coach of the Dolphins. It's been that defense. And Mike McDaniel isn't necessarily a defensive-minded coach. Let's be real here. He's been mostly that offensive-driven, we're going to score points and we're going to drive this ball down your throat, passing or rushing. The defense has given up a lot. This is looking basically like the Bengals of last year, where we gave up a lot of yards on defense, and even though our star players had very good stats during that game, we still ended up losing because we couldn't defend the ball. We couldn't stop the run. It was absolutely ridiculous and out of control. So before we talk about Mike McDaniel, we have to look at the obvious, and it's mostly that defense. Again, you could still talk about Mike McDaniel because there have been a couple of games where both the offense and defense was terrible. But the offense has progressively gotten better, where the defense has stayed shit. We'll be real with that. The offense has gotten better. Defense hasn't gotten no better. Maybe they've played like one good game and that's what got them that win. But even then, they still didn't play that great of defense, because that team that they won against still scored 20 plus points. So I think with all that being said, I don't think Mike McDaniel's job is in question yet. but we'll see. Anyway, Houston dominating a injury-filled Baltimore Ravens. That's exactly what I wanted to see from Houston Texans. I felt like they were going to win. I just didn't realize that they were going to be like, you know what, let's just absolutely dominate the Baltimore Ravens at home. And also, even though I think there's like 7 or 8 players that didn't come back, and I think next week we're going to see a little bit different stuff, because it will be some players being able to come back after 1 week or a week and a half of injury. But you get that out of the way. Yeah, the Ravens have just looked absolutely terrible. And definitely, I heard something, I'm going to try to make this quick. I heard something that you had 160 million. The players that were out and injured for this Houston game, it was like over 160 million or 165 million dollars were not playing in this game. And the Baltimore Ravens, well, each team had 280 million or around about there, but the Baltimore Ravens players that were out, that's like over 50%, if not like 3/5 of their salary cap that's out, which is crazy. It's nuts. Maybe it was more than that, but like looking at that in that type of perspective, that is nuts that you had that much money off the field, even though you paid for those guys to not to get injured, of course, but with football, stuff like that just happens. I thought this was a crazy upset. Arizona Cardinals losing against the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee, it was 21-6 until the beginning of the fourth quarter, and Cam Ward was like, no, I don't care. Let me chuck this ball down the field to my boy Riley. Let me do my thing and rush the ball here and there. And honestly, Tennessee also had a decent run game too. But what an incredible fourth quarter performance by another team who hadn't won a single game until now. And I declare this an upset as well. I think a lot of other people did. Very solid fourth quarter for Tennessee, and I did not know where the Cardinals defense or their offense was in the last 2 quarters of that game. So very surprising from that perspective. And honestly, Arizona Cardinals could have freaking kicked a field goal in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter, or at least gotten the chance to, but it just was rough. That second half was rough for the Arizona Cardinals, and hopefully they can build off of that, like get that out of their memories, but build off that first half. But I think it'll be tough. We'll see. I think the Arizona Cardinals have to play away again, I think. So it'll be tough trying to do what they need to do there. That's why a lot of people think that Arizona Cardinals aren't going to win the division anyway. Anyway, you got Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Seahawks. A very back and forth game. Buccaneers were very much in control, but it was still a close game with it being 13-7 in the second half. A lot of people thought that the Buccaneers were just going to slowly but surely get away from the Seahawks, but it's not at all what happened. Both teams wanted to absolutely, both offenses, but even some defensive plays were made as well. But both Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, obviously they both played with each other during their Carolina Panther days. Both teams also are first round draft picks, and both guys knew that they both had the talent to make the best game ever. Like, in the second half, you had the best game in this entire year. It's arguably one of the best games this year. So, and I can continue to say that and sound like a broken record, but that's just how I feel about that. And, you know, that was a lot of fantasy points just in that game as well. Crazy catches from Ibuka, crazy catches and run after the catch. Well, yards after the catch for Jackson Smith and Jabe. I mean, you got two former Ohio State alums catching the ball and making huge plays and keeping their team in it. It's exactly what you needed from two dog mentality teams such as the Buccaneers and the Seahawks, where everyone's looking away from these guys. A lot of people still looking away because both of these two teams, a lot of people aren't thinking that these guys aren't going to have a chance in the Super Bowl. They play like this every time. Now, defensively, I don't think any team wants to play like this, but offensively, if they play like this every time, it would be like every week would be like historic, just a tiny bit. But at the same time, you'll also have the Seahawks and the Buccaneers playing their absolute guts out to try and make these playoff spots or get seeded a certain way. So pretty impressive by both teams. I think you shouldn't look down on Sam Darnold losing this game. Buccaneers are just a slightly better team, but both teams are still unbelievably great. And also, Baker Mayfield only missed 4 targets. That's insane. That is near perfect football there. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be talking about that unless it's a topic of discussion, of course. Anyway, you got Washington Commanders beating a Chargers team. The Commanders did not score in the first quarter, so I thought the Chargers were going to sneakily just get like a few field goals and then that'd be it. But Chargers only scored that 10 points, and it stayed like that because Commanders were able to take the field however they needed to. They were able to get their rookie running back quite a few carries, which led him to getting 2 touchdowns and 111 rushing yards. So, and even Jaden Daniels coming back from his injury, he even played pretty well, missing 11 targets, but still being able to just get back into the flow of things. And that's really a Commanders team that you can look at. Now, granted, this Chargers team is starting to look like it used to be the team to be like, oh, like this team's gonna like they win against the Chiefs. They're like, this team could win the division. They win against the Broncos. Wow, this team could really win the division here. They go 3-0. They look good, and then they lose against the Giants, and then also lose against the Commanders. Losing against 2 NFC teams, and same division, obviously, but I mean, the Chargers need to wake up. I don't know. Maybe it's just the injuries that they're having and nobody's really talking about it too much. But they just need to wake up and do something else than they're doing. Like, they need to switch it up, because I think even Justin Herbert is starting to get irritated after starting with such a great line of wins. Especially with the strength of their team and their schedule being the way it is, they got a long. If this is exactly what the Chargers are going to end up doing, fooling their fans to be thinking that they're going to be division champs, and then just lose back-to-back games, and then also probably go into the next game and lose another game. And it's going to be a long season for the Chargers if this keeps on going on. I can tell you that right now. Patriots end up winning on Saturday night Drake May didn't have a single passing touchdown, but it didn't seem like he really needed any passing touchdowns. The rushing was going to be fine. I think there's also a little bit of like worriness with Drake May trying to pass it into the end zone whenever he's like 10 or less yards away from it. So I would rush too, in my opinion. But yeah, Stefon Diggs, back-to-back games playing incredible. Over 100 receiving yards back-to-back games. And like I said before, Stefon Diggs, if they keep feeding him, but also make sure that they're also feeding some of their other young players, this could be a very good passing offense anyway, and the rushing could take care of itself whenever they get into the red zone. But solid win against the Patriots and basically putting themselves in the spotlight and letting the Bills know that we're not just your little brothers. We'll smack the crap out of you. We'll smack the crap out of you if if you think that we're just going to lay down here and take your bull crap. Now, granted, Patriots were able to score a field goal in the first quarter. Then it was 6-3 Patriots. So really, obviously the Bills, I think, did have the lead for a little bit, but I think the Patriots basically had the lead or got back the lead throughout the entire game. I don't think the Bills are a little shaky, especially with Josh Allen. I get it, Josh Allen could also be a dual threat himself, but I don't really want to expect Josh Allen to be running the ball like that. Especially if he's trying to make plays, I get it. But you got James Cook, and that backup running back is pretty decent. So where are these guys, and why? Granted, they did contain the rushing game. Once you contain that rushing game and you kind of try to trick Josh Allen here and there, you're going to make it a close game, and all you really need to make sure is to get a few solid field goals. And that kicker, I think both kickers played well, but the Patriots kicker was on point. Not taking anything away from the Bills kicker, but the Patriots kicker, it was on point, and they keep him for a long time if Drake May is able to get that kicker in position to just ease into 45, 50 to 55 yard kick with no problem. So anyway, solid win, a great upset, but that's exactly what the Patriots needed to show that the AFC East is not dead. Now, same thing with Chargers. In my opinion, regardless of how the Chiefs started to play and how they've been playing, I do think this is still, in my head, an upset. Chargers now, though, are 4-1. They are right behind the Colts. So this will be an interesting factor to see where the Chargers and the Jaguars and the Colts go with wherever this goes. Both teams are 4-1. The Chargers are still undefeated at home, so maybe I should have taken that more into account. But again, with the Patrick Mahomes leading the rushing, granted, Trevor Lawrence also led in rushing, which both of them are just playmakers for their teams. But you can't just neglect your running backs. This is exactly where I feel like the Chiefs got me messed up, because they do have Kareem Hunt, who also had a solid game there, and had Isaiah Pacheco, who really hasn't been the same ever since he came off of that serious injury that he had. But at least it hasn't shown anything yet. But both teams, it was still a great game with the Patriots, with the Chiefs being able to score 14 points in the fourth quarter. It just didn't seem to me like the Chiefs defense was all there in that fourth quarter, especially allowing even the third quarter, allowing 24 points in that second quarter. That was huge. And the Chiefs offense had to come back, get 14 points just to then allow Trevor Lawrence in the last, I think, minute and a half or last minute to, drive down the field and then have a huge rushing gain to get a touchdown. 2 rushing touchdowns for Trevor Lawrence. That's whenever you know that as a Chiefs defense, y'all need to also contain not just the running backs, but the quarterback himself, just so you can keep him from just rushing the frickin' ball, because obviously we haven't seen Trevor Lawrence like that in a long time. But the fact that the Jaguars are still able to do what they needed to do to get that win, Trevor Lawrence showing a different side that we haven't seen in a long time, in my opinion. We've just seen a mediocre interception throwing Trevor Lawrence. You're going to probably see a lot more fireworks. Maybe not as much away, but definitely at home. If they win all of their games at home and then get some close wins against some away teams, I think they do end up being 10-7 or maybe even 11-6. But again, it's not even the middle of the year yet, so with them being 4-1, they could collapse by mid-season or towards week 12, week 13, so the Colts don't have to really worry about it. The only thing that the Colts need to worry about is playing their division games, and if they just win all of them, which I don't think they will, but if they win all of them, don't worry about the Jags type thing, unless the Jags are right there in the playoffs as well. But anyway, that is going to be it for today. Appreciate you guys for watching. Appreciate quite a few of the views in my last video, which was if you guys want to check it out, it was the shorter version to my UFC watching reaction. Now granted, to me, it was my first time doing it, so I didn't exactly get all of the main card, so sorry, but pretty solid card there. Watch it back if you want. If not, that's cool too. You guys those who are viewing this video probably already watched it. So again, appreciate your guys' support. Please like, please subscribe. If you guys haven't already, comment. Let me know what you think of these videos. And yeah, you guys have a great day and peace.